best at times. And the problem is, Tanya, you get a good position, you bring that out of him, it doesn't pay off. You don't get a good position, well, he just wins anyway.
You're not only fighting the beast who's sitting in front of you, you're fighting your, well, not sitting in front of you in this case, but sitting, well, on the screen there, but you're also fighting your own mind when these are the outcomes of the games. Because again, let's just touch upon the fact that Liem has had fantastic positions for the majority of the games. He's been the one who's been pushing, but just that 17th piece, the clock, which Hikaru has used magnificently in the match so far, has come to bite him. And now going into this time format, which is less, and we see a Catalan appear for the first time in this match, I think this is a tough ride. 2-point deficit. How does he make a comeback from here, Liem Le?
Yeah, so the other thing I'll say about this time format, 3+1, is that Quang Liem actually, his title Tuesday is kind of what brought him here to the SCC, his qualification. And so this time control is very familiar for him because of that, right? So I actually think this could turn out to be one of his better time controls, and it's in line with, the blitz portions, 5 and 3, we were saying he needs to focus on. The problem is Hikaru is one of the best blitz players in the world. So it can be your best format, but you're still playing Hikaru.
Man, I was just about to say, who's the one guy who's won title Tuesday countless number of times? Like, it's nobody's business. It's your opponent. So yes, you got in here through title Tuesday, but the point is you're playing against a speed demon, a speed monster, the best in the business when it comes to this. For Liem, he's going to give it his all. He's got nothing to lose, everything to prove. What do you make of the start of the 3+1 that we have in front of us?
Well, we're back to the Catalan, which is something that we've seen before, especially in previous matches. But Quang, as we've talked about, classical player. We saw a position earlier in this match that featured knight h5 takes on f4. Here, a lot different. And just looking at the position, if the move c5 does not happen, we have a position that Hikaru is probably going to be concerned about. If that c-pawn just never seems to appear on the c5 square, watch out. So I think this is what it's all about here. The move c5 in the next couple of moves, Tanya.
And that's why the weird geometrical maneuver by the queen from d8 all the way to a8 by giving a check first. It firstly vacates a nice square for the rook to come to, but also allows that break-free move, the golden move that black aims for in the Catalan with c5.
Yeah, knight b6 right now is holding that move back. But if knight a5 was played, I do think we would see the move c5 appear immediately, because if white plays knight a5 and gets to play knight c6, huge problem for Hikaru's coordination and for all of his pieces. So we're not going to see black allow something like that. However, you also can't play c5 right now because of knight b6. So we're at a little bit of a standstill where both sides are improving pieces, but no one can fully commit to that idea that they want.
Also not easy to play queen a7 because the other knight jumps in with a fork on c6. So you can't really walk out of the threat of knight b6. I wonder if it's time what Hikaru is really setting up is the idea of knight d7, trying to trade off one of the knights to ease some of the pressure. He first blocks the rook on the b line.
Yeah, a5, bishop b4, enjoying the, I guess, the clamp on the b file. I was also thinking about making space for queen a6 with the move a5, maybe to help that c-pawn advance again. But we're looking at something completely different than expected. This is a very unusual fork, right? You're like hitting the knight, hitting the a-pawn, and Hikaru's trying to solve his problems tactically here.
As he very often does. And now suddenly it's super tricky because he's regained material, but perhaps with interest, because the knight on b4 is hanging, the pawn on d4 was hanging, flurry of moves coming in. Watch out, knight e7 is a big fork right now. White's piece activities makes up for the pawn deficit in the position for Liem.
Yeah, and this pawn chain is actually doing a lot of work here. Notice how this knight really doesn't have anywhere to go. Even knight h5, you can't go to f4. So the knight has nowhere to go. The knight on c6 is actually keeping a lot of the pieces locked up. Like, look at this rook, doomed to passivity. But you're also up a pawn in exchange for all of this. So a little bit of a trade-off here for Hikaru.
And I think he's about to cash in. Go rook takes pawn next, and the other rook about to jump to b7. So Hikaru stops it by attacking the rook on c7. Only one square. Can we potentially see some sort of a repetition in this position with rook b7 and a bit of a back and forth with the knight attacking the rook?
Yeah, I absolutely could. Really depends if Hikaru is interested in that, because what I expect is Hikaru is very curious to learn
Oh,
perhaps how Le Quang Liem is going to handle this time situation. It's a minute up on the clock, and I
hmm.
don't think Hikaru needs to take this draw. There's no big threats that concern me.
I want to just point out that after knight d6, you can't go to d7. There might be tactics with knight takes pawn on the board, which is why he's forced to put the rook on c7. And now, for Hikaru, moment of truth, he's going for more, no draw.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. There's also this sneaky idea that will just get you thinking, if you're Le Quang Liem, about g4. Is g4 a threat? It loosens up the e-pawn, and, well, it's my first thought, pawn to g4, but definitely not necessary. We have other pieces, like, for example, this rook on b8 that we can improve first.
And a good move there by Liam, trying to trade off the rooks that you're talking about if the knights are off the board. And then it'll be white first to that a5 pawn if everything liquidates.
Yeah, you cannot just trade everything here. The rook will come to c5 and take on a5. That's not what Hikaru wants. He's looking for a way to put some pressure on. Of course, he wants to play rook b2, but after the knight trades, does he have better than just a draw?
Big question. Well, Hikaru, it really looks like he wants to keep as much tension on the board. He's playing on the clock one more time. He's counting on it. And this is how he hedges the risks so well in these format, you know. He knows when he needs to play fast. He keeps all the pieces on the board. And as long as the knights are alive, it's very tricky.
And he's allowing this knight to escape here, but at this point, Hikaru's not always searching for the best move. He's trying to keep the game going. He's trying to get that time under 5 seconds, where at that point, he almost expects a blunder to happen.
And it's happened so many times in this match. So you can understand those expectations right there. And for now, at least, black has an extra pawn. And not so clear how white plans to re-win that.
Yeah, pawn to g4, it's that idea from many, many moves ago. At this point, yes, you can play rook takes e4, but you just have to give thought to rook takes e8 in that position.
And Hikaru quickly moved the knight up, attacked the 2 pawns, and almost felt like a pre-move there. The speed with which the knight blocked the check. He's going to win the g4 pawn, will be up a pawn, and these are pretty tricky amount, with the e-pawn becoming a passer.
Exactly, you're up a pawn here as Hikaru, and most importantly, what we've been expecting will be the problem is time. And literally, as I'm saying that, you just see time